Part of the lyrics in that song is, for those of you who may be familiar, is with the love chapter that is in the Bible. It's in 1 Corinthians, the 13th chapter. And that was one of the inspirations for me selecting that music. And so I say, welcome to the Monterey Center for Spiritual Living. Thank you for choosing us for your spiritual upliftment this morning. For our family that is viewing on Facebook, we invite you to like, comment, share, and follow our page. And for our YouTube channel viewers, we invite you to subscribe, like, and share. And our subscribers that this message of love, this message of the goodness of spirit is spreading throughout the planet. In fact, just as a little side note, I prepared a little summary of our Facebook data for our board at its recent meeting. And as I was going through the data, it identified the countries where we have had views from. And so we truly, just as our own little center, are international because we have views from Ghana, from Kenya, from Europe, from the UK, and where was one of the other locations? Bangladesh, I think Bangladesh was one. Some of the locations that I didn't think that, even Science of Mind would have a presence. So we're spreading this message that God is love and that love is all there is. Nothing can keep us from the love of God. What a comfort. What joy to know that all is well within the soul. And this is from our Science of Mind textbook on page 486. And I believe there is also a scripture that is compatible with this, and I'm not remembering it right offhand. Yesterday, the fall and autumn equinox began here in the Northern Hemisphere. And I offer these words for reflection on this time of the season that we're going through. It's a colorful time of change, celebrating the natural cycles of life. As the trees gently release their golden leaves, it is a reminder for me to let go of whatever may have been a burden or I've simply outgrown, anything that no longer serves me. Like the trees, I release and let go. And this is from Reverend Jane Beach. Yom Kippur begins today, the 24th of September, and goes through the 25th. Yom Kippur, also known as the Day of Atonement, is considered to be the holiest day of the year for people of the Jewish faith and Jewish tradition. Its central themes are atonement and repentance. Jews traditionally reserve this holy day with 25 hours of fasting and intensive prayer. Yom Kippur completes the annual period known in Judaism as the High Holy Days. And I share these words about Yom Kippur from Rabbi Noah Weinberg. The entire world is God's message of love to us. Yom Kippur is the time when we are most open to receive this message, God's message of love. And so I share this with you so that it's just another expansion of the teachings of Science of Mind and New Thought, where we see the likeness and we see the kernels of truth in all traditions. And it is an invitation to us to be open to receive the message that God, Spirit, Source, whatever it is that we identify with as a higher power, is always resonating with us. And so we close out our theme for the month of September, Love Out Loud, and I offer this brief recap. We focused on the word love. In Science of Mind, we believe that the word God is synonymous with love. Because God is all there is, love must also be all that there is. We learn to look for love every place we go, in the people we interact with, the events of the world, and most of all, within ourselves. This is where love begins within each one of us. We learn to recognize that a world filled with war, violence, and division, we have the tools to see the God or the love that resides behind the darkness. Recognizing that the darker side of spirituality is necessary for growth and spiritual evolution. And remember, I shared with you from our recent SOAR Asilomar conference, one of the, what's the word I'm searching for? One of the offerings that one of the speakers presented was, when we are looking at something that appears to be not like spirit, or not like something we would like, a discordant thing, something that is upsetting us, rather than engage in spiritual bypass and try and move around it, or to ignore it and pretend that it doesn't exist, as people of faith, as practitioners of the spiritual philosophy, we're invited to look directly at whatever that experience is. And by looking at it, we see through it, and we see the spiritual truth that is behind that. And so our focus then becomes on the spiritual truth rather than on the appearance of whatever is there. And so this is what we mean by looking behind the darkness and seeing the light, seeing the love, knowing that love wins. We're changing the world by leaning into love and learning as an example of love in action. And we're advocating for ourselves and each other's right to express love in our own unique ways, because this helps to create a world that works for everyone, which is one of the overarching goals of the philosophy of Science of Mind and our Centers for Spiritual Living. And so this leads us into our talk for today, Love Wins, Believe the Impossible. Believe the impossible. Going again to our Science of Mind textbook, Ernest Holmes offers these words: the world is beginning to realize that it has learned all it should through suffering and loss and pain. There can be no intelligence in the universe that wishes us to be sick, to suffer pain, to be unhappy, and to end in oblivion. Surely, if God or universal intelligence is imbued with goodness, then it could not ordain that we should ultimately be other than perfect expressions of life. And this is on page 107, paragraph 4. We are perfect expressions of life. We release suffering and pain by unlearning the lessons of fear that have been passed down to us through generations. I believe it is in the Course of Miracles and in other places also. It says there are only two emotions, love and fear. And those two cannot coexist simultaneously. So we're either choosing love or we're choosing fear. And those lessons of fear is that unlearning that we are invited to give up, that those false beliefs, those false ideas, those false sayings or rituals or whatever it is that have been passed on to us through traditions, through our generations. Some we're so unconscious of, we don't even know that they're fear-based. Living consciously from the understanding that love is all there is, we experience a life of greater love than we have ever known before. Love is a value that starts with each individual's decision to express their freedom. By fighting for the right to express themselves, marginalized individuals have paved the way for a global shift. And I offer these examples of the freedom that comes from Love Wins. The state of Virginia charged Mildred Jeter and Richard Loving for marrying at a time when interracial marriages were banned in the United States. The U.S. Supreme Court struck down the ban, leading to interracial marriages being legalized nationwide in 1967. Just an example of how slow progress is. This ruling by the Supreme Court took place after the signing of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution in 1868. So the 14th Amendment was signed in 1868, but it took an act of the Supreme Court in 1967 to strike down just this one thing, interracial marriages. When Will and Grace premiered on NBC in 1968, it was the first network TV show with a same gender-loving protagonist. The show sparked a global shift towards cultural acceptance of same gender-loving people. The writers of Will and Grace and the executives at NBC stood in their truth, contributing to a shift in the culture and the cultural conversations. The Netherlands became the first country to pass marriage equality laws in 2001. Now there are 34 countries with marriage equality laws, and others are continuing to advocate for it. These are just some examples of how we engage in social activism. I was at an event recently and someone asked the question, where does Centers for Spiritual Living stand on what's out picturing in the country today, especially when it is reflected to people of color and other marginalized individuals. And the comment was, and this was a not a licensed practitioner, but someone who practices the teachings and has been in the teachings for a long time. And I know the individuals quite well, and they're more political, they're social activists, but more on the political end. And so my response to that was, we are engaging in social activism. And social activism is standing up and speaking up for someone who is being marginalized. It's like I've seen on social media where it says, if someone is talking about me and you're in the room, you're my friend, and you don't stand up for me, then I question the value of our friendship. And so this is just a small example of how we can engage in social activism, is by speaking up for those who are marginalized by someone in our presence. This does not mean that we ignore or spiritually bypass world events. We have the power to respond to and shift the cultural conversations. Positive outcomes from shifting the cultural conversations to a focus on love allows us to recognize some of the following. Same gender loving couples being affirmed around the globe more today than ever before. Transgender people are publicly embracing their identities now more than ever before in human history. Education on gender non-binary identities are increasingly education on gender non-binary identities are increasing, and introducing ourselves with our pronouns of choice are becoming much more common. And I can say this within our organization, there's a stretch that is taking place. There's a real stretch that is taking place. And some of the newer in age groups is pulling and I don't consider myself in that group. I align more with the younger group in terms of my thinking and in terms of my way of being. But it's been an interesting conversation to see how we're being pulled and the resistance to the shift, the resistance to the change. And yet we know that change occurs, that shift happens, and we are a part of that. And we can do it through love, because love always wins. Love is the grandest healing and drawing power on earth. And again, this is from our Science of Mind textbook on page 298. Experiences that cause conflict are an invitation to shift. They invite us to lean into or dive deeper into love to resolve the conflict. Conflict allows us to practice radical forgiveness. And the first time I heard this term, radical forgiveness, was I think there's a book by that title, Radical Forgiveness, and it's written by a Stanford professor, and I'm not remembering his name right now, but I read it at the time, and it just really takes you into a deeper dive to look at what radical forgiveness is. And in all of the forgiveness work, it points back to the individual. It points back to me. What have I done? What change can I make? Where can I atone? Where can I make right something that I have made wrong? Engage. Every challenge is an invitation to discover how our choices exemplify how radical forgiveness can look when love resides behind it. Serving the world. When we love ourselves, our lives shift. When we love ourselves, our lives shift. Serving the world is an example of self-love, providing to others the love that always wins. Authenticity inspires joy, and embracing who we are inspires others to embrace who they are. And it's a ripple effect. It's like throwing a pebble out into a pond and you watch the ripple of the water, the waves go out, you know, or standing down at the bay, standing at the seashore and watching the waves come in and the waves go out. This is how we know that love wins. It's a reciprocal action. Loving ourselves out loud attracts people who celebrate us, rather than those who want to condemn us or put us in a box or put us down or ignore the fact that we are expressing our authenticity. Loving ourselves and loving each other aligns us with beautiful opportunities, experiences, and peace. And this is our ultimate goal, to live from a place of peace, to live from a place of love, and to live from a place of joy. And so our conclusion and our call to action this morning is to remember the universe makes no mistakes. The universe makes no mistakes. Every experience is unfolding for the highest and best for the world at large. Even though we may not see it in the moment, we are called as people of faith to remember that every experience, every means in everything. Everything is in it. Nothing is outside of it. Everything is unfolding for the highest and best for each one of us and for the world at large. Believe in yourself. Trust your intuition. Practice balance between self-care and giving back to our communities as a way of demonstrating authenticity. And I think the emphasis should be practicing balance and self-care, believing in yourself, trusting your intuition, practicing balance and self-care, believing in yourself, trusting your intuition. If we do that, we don't have time for conflict. All we have time for is to celebrate the life that we're given and to celebrate the life of each one that we have the opportunity to interact with in whatever way we interact with them. Listen for Spirit's nudge to inspire each one of us in a particular way. Trust the ideas that come to you are divine ideas. And again, from Dr. Holmes in our Science of Mind textbook, nothing can keep us from the love of God. What a comfort. What a joy to know that all is well with the soul. Love wins despite all obstacles. Let us say together now our affirmation for this week. Love always wins. Love is all there is. I am a winner. Let's say this again with emphasis on the ending part. Love always wins. Love is all there is. I am a winner. Yes. Let us turn within as we embrace this time of prayer and reflection. I invite you just taking a breath, breathing in this life force, this goodness, this allness, the all-prevailing presence of spirit, and the full awareness that God is all that there is. I know, and I know for each one, that there's only one thing happening here, and that is love expressing. Love expressing in its authentic, natural, loving way, as individualized expressions of itself. Each one moving, living, and having their very beingness as the life of God, the life of love, the life of this universal intelligence. And so as we have gathered this morning in this particular time and space, we also know that we're not bound by the limitations of time and space. Just as love, just as spirit is non-local, we too are non-local. Meaning that we get to experience this idea of love. We get to experience this idea of joy and peace everywhere we go, from moment by moment by moment, because that is who we are. And so I bless our time together this morning. I bless all that flows out of this experience this morning, knowing that there's a message of love that has touched someone. And anyone who has been touched by this message, the invitation is to practice it, to practice love as a daily experience, to practice love as a life experience, to practice love unconditionally, beginning with ourselves. For we truly are the place where God shows up. I speak a word of blessing this morning for individuals who are gathering whatever time and space that is working for them. They're gathering in the name and nature of the one true love, knowing that there are many paths that lead to this creative intelligence, and all paths embrace kernels of truth. I am delighted this morning to be on the path of fellow journeyers, fellow seekers, fellow learners, fellow teachers, knowing that each time a student is ready, the teacher appears, and when the teacher is ready, the student appears. And so I'm grateful for the teachers and the students that are part of my life experience. And I bless those who continue to carry this message of love. It is not something that is reserved for a select group of individuals. Each one of us is a messenger of love. And so in truth, I give thanks for this. I speak a word of blessing this morning for those who are experiencing transitions in life, the transitions of loved ones, those who have stepped off of the mortal plane and are now experiencing true non-locality, knowing that each time we think of that individual or those individuals, they live on in our memory, they live on in our hearts, they live on in our life experiences. Those who are experiencing transition leading to right livelihood in the terms of financial freedom that allows for all of the financial support that is required to live a life of goodness and graciousness and opulence, to live the life that we're designed and created to live. I know that whatever seems to be lacking, is appearing right here and right now. And we open to receive, I open to receive all of the goodness that life has to offer. And as I receive it, I also share it. I give back into life what life has given into me. And for this and so much more, for those prayers that remain in the silence of our hearts, I know that the answer is yes. And so as I release this word, as I release this treatment, as I release this prayer back into the law, which always says yes, I know that it is done and it is done well. And I invite you to affirm this with me this morning as we say together, and so it is, and so it is. Thank you. Thank you. And now this is our opportunity to participate in the circulation known as gracious giving. And I want to thank you for the ways that you continue to support our spiritual community. And as we're moving into the end of the year, I'm putting you on alert to expect a letter from me that speaks to our financial affairs and will invite you to expand to the extent that you can and the extent that you're willing to your year-end giving, so that we do close our books in the black and sustain us for the oncoming year. And we have an affirmation of abundance that I invite us to share together now. I recognize the presence of God within as the source of my abundance. Out of my abundance consciousness flows everything I could desire in a life. With gratitude and thanksgiving, I now participate in the flow of uninterrupted abundance. This prosperous experience is evidence of my abundance consciousness. And so there are ways to donate to the center. For those of you who are here in the center this morning, we have a donation box on the glass table that you may leave your offerings there. Gratitude, gratitude, gratitude for those mail-in donations that come to the center at 400 West Franklin Street in Monterey, 93940. For the text to give donations that come in, that number is on the screen. And for the donations through our website at montereycsl.org. And another shout out for the website. While you're there to make your donation, also click on the page to sign up for our newsletter so that you receive the weekly update and are informed of what is going on in our community. Today, following service, our spiritual living discussion circle meets. We had opened this up in the past for participants on Zoom, and we haven't had any takers so far, but the Zoom room will be open for those of you who would like to stay and join. And it's the same Zoom room as the Sunday service. So just keep the Zoom room open, grab a little snack, and join us for our spiritual living discussion circle. And so we say good morning to our YouTube and our Facebook viewers. We invite you to return next week when we begin our October series, and the theme is Playing with Paradox. And the talk will be the paradox mindset. And again, we invite our Facebook and YouTube viewers to like, share, follow, subscribe. Help us continue to get the message out. We bless you, we thank God for you, and we love you.